let's talk to Alex.
Yeah.
It shouldn't break your Zen. I really think Alex deserves our time. Hi, Alex. How you doing? Can you hear us, Alex? I know you've probably been muted for quite a while. Are you still there? Alex, we have you on the line.
Hear me?
Yes, I can now. Hi, Alex. How are you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Sorry, I had my headphones in, so.
It's okay. What would you like to talk about, Alex?
There's a lot that goes into my question, but what I think what I think I'll do is I'll just give you the overbranching topic. Hope it doesn't sound too crazy, and then you guys can ask for more elaboration. I'll tell you about my backstory if need be. Long story short, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Basically, I needed help fully distancing myself from modern age spirituality. And there's a particular reason why it's hard to separate myself from it. The main reason is, I don't want to sound, drastic or dramatic, but I have certain types of mental illnesses, and I was raised in church and then left church. There's different reasons in between there and stuff. Had some troubles in my life, and then, modern age spirituality and stuff kind of helped me deal with those things. But now listening to you guys and studying stuff about psychology and especially cognitive biases, once you get into that, it's almost over for a lot of things. Yeah. But as someone that has certain mental illness, no, I'm just agreeing. Because it's like, as someone that, struggles with mental illness, spirituality has kind of been, just to use this example, an armor for me in certain ways. Like, my particular area I was born into is...
It can be a safe place to turn for some people until they realize that it's not what they thought it was. And then it can be more deleterious because they've lost a safe place to turn and don't know what to replace that with. That's a very real thing that people with mental illness struggle with when they come to realizations regarding how they think about, perceive, and approach religious belief. Sometimes it can be a haven. But I think one of I understand. I think I maybe understand a little bit of your point. And you can tell me if I'm wrong. When you're breaking from spirituality, particularly if you suffer from psychiatric disorders or other forms of mental illness, where a component of your perceptual, your world perception and your self-introspective perceptions are intertwined with your perception of religion. Once that becomes disentangled, because you've already been doing so much of the hard work of coping with the mental health issues that you may have, and potentially leaning on religion as a crutch, finding something to replace that spirituality component of your coping strategies with can be incredibly difficult. But what I would argue, and I think there's some evidence is correct, is that if you're utilizing it as a coping mechanism, whatever beneficial aspect you receive from it as a coping mechanism can be kind of shored out, and you can replace it with something that's a little bit more solid in its foundations, like something introspective. So you can utilize some sort of cognitive behavioral therapies. You can utilize free writing. There's lots of things that it can be replaced with, and the things that it's replaced with are going to have a much stronger long-term foundation that's built on something tangibly and provably accurate instead of and beneficial to you, as opposed to using spirituality components or religious components, which are essentially just kind of a plausibly sometimes effective, sometimes deleterious, maybe comforting idea that people have. Is that something that maybe you're struggling with a little bit?
A little bit. I'm trying not to be, I might as well just be direct so I can get to the point. I know you guys have had a lot of stuff. And I hear what you're saying, and that helps, but here's my only thing. I'm just going to say it like this. There's a whole... dang. All right. Well, I'll be that called. Bring it up. I have a whole, I'm just using this phrase as guardian angel kind of split voice. I'm careful to say split voice instead of personality to not make people be like, bum, 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 because it's, everything's cool, right? Yeah. My only thing is this. I'm 31 years old, and there's certain things that I'm struggling with for a long time or trying to get back on my feet on, like trying to steady job, career, trying to find romance and things. And here's my only thing. Back when I was a Christian until 17 and left, and then spirituality from there, if I don't have those spiritual beliefs, then I'm basically left as a young man with mental illness who basically lucked or found his way to do enough hard work into, I'm not trying to be whatever, but meeting the females I did, holding down the job that I did. Like now, I feel like the fact I ever held down a job is luck. My mind is telling me the fact I ever, kissed or went to prom is like
what
luck.
Difference does it make? What difference does it make, Alex, if you were the recipient of some fortune? You made decisions, you took certain actions, you have to take responsibility for the decisions you made and the actions you took. You should also take credit for the decisions you made and the actions you took. And if some fortune happened to favor you, big fucking deal. That happens to everybody. I mean, I happened to move to Austin and get involved with a local public access show just as it was becoming possible to begin streaming it to the world. I didn't invent the internet. I didn't invent streaming. I was fortunate that my involvement with this show coincided with the ability to reach a much larger audience. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, but I still did the fucking work. So take credit for it. You're not just, if you remove the guardian angel, you're not left with, oh, I just lucked into it. What you do is if you keep the guardian angel, you don't get to take credit or responsibility for anything. It was all the divine inspired. That'd be like me saying that, clearly I worked out a deal with the devil, and that's what, helped popularize the show. And I'm sure people would believe it, but it doesn't make it true.
Mm-hmm. You probably heard people. Sorry, but you probably heard people say such things before in random emails or, anyway.
All the time.
Alex, I don't think that you should be caught up on the fact that I just want to make sure that what you're saying is not that when good things happen to you, if you have to look at them through the lens of you just being the only one around, then maybe you didn't deserve them or do anything to enact them. Like, did you previously think that there was a spiritual hand guiding you and you were giving that the credit as opposed to yourself and how you behaved and having that sort of internal self-confidence? And now that a spiritual aspect is slowly starting to fade away, you have to start attributing it to either yourself or to chance, and that's something that's complex for you?
Well, it's not even that it's complex, because I've worked hard on different things before. Like martial arts, it was pretty easy to see, right? You punch just in the air, and then you get beat up. And then you wear like more weights and punch with dumbbells, and then you don't get beat up because you worked hard. But the thing is, but just an example, right? Just raw physical, this realm. But here's the only, I'm trying to say it and get to the point that's like, if there's no angels, if there's no gods, if there's no nothing, if I've been talking to a guardian, I'm trying to whisper because I'm in my parents' house and stuff, but if there is no such thing as spirituality, then that means I've been talking to myself and giving myself advice for all these years. Now, like you said, I worked hard on that advice. But I'm trying not to be that guy on the air, but like, can you see how that can kind of give me some I don't want to say breakdownage, right? But something to realize that you're basically.
It sounds like you're lacking in self-confidence and a capacity to appreciate the fact that your thoughts definitely have value to you and are the results of thinking, and that they're not always going to be correct. I know some people who never take credit for what they do, because the second they do that, it means that they would also have to take responsibility for what they do. And so there's this comforting thing that if you think it's all being guided from on high, that now you're no longer to blame when things go wrong. And if that means you don't take credit, oh, well, you've subjugated yourself before the higher power and it's all part of God's plan. And that's really freaking convenient, except that there's no evidence that it's no good evidence it's actually true. And there's considerable evidence that it's not true. And so while you're kind of uncomfortable coming to the point of giving yourself credit, granted, I'm suspicious as to how much of it is based on the recognition that you will also have to take blame.
Okay. Also, I'm hearing you say something that I've grabbed a pencil. Apparently, I love this. So I'm hearing you say something that I really want to hammer home to you, that I've heard other people say before when they come out of religious ideologies, because they don't have this sort of recognition that all of us have this internal monologue, and it manifests in many forms. You've said you've had some sort of mental illnesses. I'm not sure if you have DID. That could be something that's plausible. Hopefully you're pursuing treatment, but that doesn't even need to necessarily go that to that extreme. So I did a video actually a while ago called, it's actually pinned to the top of my channel if you'd like to go have a look. And I'm not saying that you should have a look and watch the video just for the sake of getting the view, but there's also many, many studies that I linked in the description of the video. And those studies have to do with how we attribute the affect of our internal monologues. So we have we all talk to ourselves for the most part, unless you have a disorder, that about what we're doing. We have this running monologue in our mind that we can kind of interact with, so we can have an effect to it. Now, if you have a religious ideology, if you have a religious belief, for some people will attribute the other side of that internal monologue to them being able to communicate with God. But really, it's the same internal monologue all of us have. It's just a misattribution error. Some people are labeling that internal monologue we all have as a deity, and some people have this understanding and recognition that we all have this sort of internal monologue. Now, if you gave that internal monologue attributes, it's incredibly feasible, and it's not even super uncommon to start to assign it attributes. And maybe even it have some sort of individualized personality during interactions. If that becomes too compartmentalized, then it can become disassociative, and that is an issue. And that's something that, irrespective of whether or not you are somebody who is spiritual, you really should seek some sort of counseling and diagnostic therapy regarding, because it could become a bigger issue later on down the line. But if it is like a lower order internal cognitive dialogue that you're having, that we all have day to day, and you're just assigning attributes to the other side of that introspective monologue and labeling it a dialogue instead, it's not something that you should be concerned about or afraid about. And because religion gives you this scaffolding where you have this priming preconception, it's already framed psychologically that you're going to be able to have some sort of communication standard with this deity that cares about you, for example, then it's very, very, very common that people will use their internal biases, and you said you studied biases, in order to give that aspect of their internal monologue those specific attributes, because they have this expectation that that's a thing that's going to happen. They're looking for it to happen, and this component of how our cognition already functions can kind of be a stand-in for that. But it's not delusional thinking necessarily. It's just a false hit. It's a false positive.
On that note, yeah. So on that note, Alex, we're gonna put an end to the show here in just a second. I want to make sure that you get mentioned this. I actually watched a video on people who are saying that they don't have that internal monologue, but that's a separate issue, since by and large we tend to almost everybody has it, and there's some oddities. I'm worried here because we're gonna have to stop the show. Shannon's got to move on, and I've got to move on, and we appreciate the call, Alex. I just want to make sure that no matter what you think about what is or isn't real, that you don't fall into a trap of not acknowledging your contribution to your life, whether it's credit or blame. That's an important part of being a responsible, healthy member of society, is recognizing, there's that old canard from, I think it's Alcoholics Anonymous and others, which is, God grant me the ability to change the things I can, and the serenity to accept things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It's still a fairly good thing, because what it's saying is, hey, there are things that I'm not going to be able to change in life. I'm going to have to deal with, pressures and conflicts, and I'm just not going to be able to fix it all. And then there are other things that I can, and it's good to be able to recognize that, until you can get to the point where you stop giving credit to beings that you cannot demonstrate are real, and start addressing what you can and can't, accomplish. I don't know that you're going to find a way out of that. It's not easy, but I don't want to also just say, oh, well, you're stuck. If you're, that far gone, you got these spiritual beliefs, you have to just stick with them. No, that's not the case. I think you and the bulk of human beings are capable of transcending the limitations that religions have put on us. And I genuinely hope that you find the ability and the comfort and the self-confidence to do all of that. And we thank you for calling.
Yeah, Alex.
Oh, do you mind if I add one more thing?
Yeah, of course. It's because you've been a breath of fresh air. Yes, please. One more thing. And then we'll have to let you go.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you both said. The only other, and I do need to give myself more confidence and credit for things I've done. My only question for Shannon is this. How do you tell how much, just to use the term self-talk because I heard it somewhere, how do you tell how much, well, let me use the proper term, internal dialogue. How much internal dialogue can you tell if it's just, because there's some things from my childhood that were less than ideal before this guardian angel appeared that might be a bit, what's the phrase I'm looking for? The word I'm saying is, how do you tell if it's a point where you need to seek help or if it's just your internal monologue with just to...
Is the internal monologue preventing you from getting shit done? Are you having intrusive thoughts? Are you obsessing over thoughts? If those are the cases, then you need to talk to an expert because then the internal monologue has become something else. But if it's just, hey, what do I think about this? Oh, maybe that. Oh, maybe that. And it's not getting in the way of doing stuff, but it actually appears to be helping, then as a non-expert, I'll shut up and let Shannon answer this.
Okay. So I'd like to expand upon that actually, because if there's aspect of this internal monologue that you're interacting with or dialogue that you're interacting with that you feel is engaging in interaction styles that you can't control, if you see a demonstration that you're unable to control these thoughts or understand these thoughts or recognize where they're coming from, then, or even if you just have concerns, if you're able to articulate concerns, I would suggest having a discussion with somebody about it. It doesn't mean that you should be concerned, but if nothing else, it'll prevent a swell of anxiety regarding those concerns.
Yeah,
and a swell of anxiety regarding those concerns could be something, if it is a legitimate issue that needs attention, could be something that acts as an antagonist that causes a dissociative affect mentally. If it is something that you have concerns about, pursue discussing it with somebody more in depth, and it'll at least alleviate those concerns. Take care of yourself first and foremost. Like Matt's absolutely right. You need to give yourself more credit. You need to consider that you having these internal dialogues that you may have been attributing a component of your internal dialectics to giving it characteristics that is entirely plausible. But if you can articulate concerns and have in a couple of instances here, it's worth pursuing. No one ever said, golly gee, I sure do wish I didn't try to take care of my mental health. That sure was something that I do regret. Please take care of your mental health. If you have concerns, pursue them.
And you can reach out to Recovering from Religion and the Psychotherapist Project. Sure. Thanks to Chat for mentioning that. But on that point, Alex, we got to go, but we appreciate it. And call us back, let us know, touch base, and how you're doing.
Yeah, please, Alex.